Welcome. Welcome. Very excited to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and your professional journey and what basically led you to become a director of a Montessori kindergarten in Cyprus?
Okay, my background before being involved in education was banking and finance and compliance. Very different, extremely different. However, I was always very interested in education. I was always reading about education, research. I done many courses. I did the CELTA course for teaching English as a foreign language back in 2005. So even from back then, I was very interested in education. However, 12 years ago, I ended up in Saudi Arabia. And I was working at the British International School in Riyadh, which was fantastic, in the accounts department because, of course, my background was finance. However, I used to watch all the little Foundation 1 children going every morning back and forward. So I went to the principal and I said, please, give me a chance. I will do some studies. I promise you I will work hard. So he said, okay, I'll give you a chance. So I was put in as an assistant in Foundation 1, which is basically reception class in Saudi Arabia. And being an international school, you had so many different children, diversity, backgrounds, etc., which was fantastic. So that's when I decided that I was very interested in the Montessori method of education. To cut a long story short, I applied to Modern Montessori International London and I did my theory from Saudi and then went to London to do my practicum. I now have the franchise in Cyprus of MMI International London, as you're aware. I started the training with the training centre and then eventually took on the whole school in 2019.
Wow.
It's a passion of mine. As an educator, you never stop learning. It's continuous. Exactly. So basically, that's my background.
Amazing. So it's definitely a different kind of background because you didn't start like out in education and then because you were feeling very passionate about it. And if you know Miss Linda, you know that she's very passionate about what she does. So how would you describe the Montessori philosophy to, let's say, a parent that has not heard of it before?
Okay, the Montessori philosophy is basically respect the child. First of all and foremost, respect the child. Freedom to learn within limits. And, you know, this is sometimes where people get confused with the Montessori method, that they think it's a free-for-all, you know, we're kind of hippie style, etc. I can assure you it's not. The Montessori values are respect for everything living and non-living. So the children learn how to be with nature and be one with nature. Now, all children are different. They're all at different speeds. They all have different likes and dislikes. And this is where the Montessori environment respects the whole child, the holistic child.
I see. So from your experience, what would you say are the key developmental benefits of a child attending a Montessori kindergarten rather than just a normal public, let's say, kindergarten?
Basically, the child develops a love for learning because they're not forced to learn. It's not like a structured school. However, there is a facilitator, a directress, whatever you want to call us. We are there to help the child. And it allows them to be independent. It focuses on their concentration. And through that, we have the 3-hour work cycle in a Montessori environment. When the children come in the morning, they are free to work with the materials. They decide how to work with them, when to work with them. And it's an non-interrupted session of 3 hours where the child is available to go around and select what they want to work with. However, you will probably ask, but what if a child is doing nothing? This is where the facilitator, the directors, we step in and we guide the child and we work with the child.
That's amazing because even for us, like as occupational therapists, the sessions are very much child-led in many ways.
Yeah.
So I might prepare some activities in advance, but the end product basically is that I go into the session and I see how the child feels like. you know, I might prepare some activities involving Lego and they're not feeling Legos today. So we're doing something else. So the facilitator role that you're explaining, I think is very important for a parent to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Because obviously we give them their freedom and their independence, but again, they're guided because you have goals with them.
Of course, like you see with us, with our toddlers that came in, they moved up from the baby room, they moved into the toddlers in September.
Yeah.
So they were still not familiar with the working, how to work the room basically.
Yeah.
So yes, we did set up a tray with Play-Doh, we did set up a tray with Lego, and they were free to move around it. However, yesterday I was so impressed with one of our little ones. He's just turned 2 now, and he was asked to tidy up. And he took what he was working with and he put the cars in the drawer where the cars go. And he was still holding something. And the teacher said, but you're holding something else. And he looked at her and he went straight over to where it lives, because everything lives somewhere in the Montessori environment. And he put it away. And you know, that was such an awe moment for us, that this little 2-year-old has now got the grasp of Montessori, how to work the room.
Exactly. So how would you say then the Montessori education supports children's independence, emotional regulation, self-confidence, and all those kind of like underlying skills that they need to build up?
Well, us as Montessorians, we always believe that social emotional development is priority above all. They have to feel they're allowed to be unique, because every child is unique. Every human being is unique. And through allowing their self-esteem to grow, their confidence to grow, they're not being pushed, they're not being told they have to catch up with other things that other children are doing. This is where their self-confidence builds. And they become aware that they have someone who's supporting them. Exactly. And this is very, very important for young human beings. We believe that if a child is socially, emotionally able to stand and speak with you and feel confident, then the academics will come later. Between the ages of 0 and 6, we shouldn't even be thinking about the academics.
Exactly.
Because they're learning through play and they're still getting the full-scale academics.
In one of our seminars, we really promoted play as the main occupation of a child between the ages of 0 to 6.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very important takeaway for the parents to know that although obviously they attend kindergarten, they attend school and stuff, and they're doing things, their main occupation is play.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what they should be doing at school.
You know, by the time the children come through our baby room, our toddler room, and they go into the Montessori classroom, which is 3 to 6, by the time they're 4 and a half, they don't need a teacher there anymore. And that's what Montessori said, you know. Look at the children as if you don't need to be there anymore. And that's how our reception class is. The children go in there, they know what they have to work with. Yes, they do have some one-to-one, because of course we do have to observe as educators their preparation for going into big school. But they know. I mean, you ask our children things and you're just in awe with some of them. I'll give you an example. There was one day we were doing the Black Line, which is the history of the creation of the world. And I had one little 4-year-old, he's actually now at Morningside at Montessori, and he stood up and he started talking about the volcanoes in Lebanon and the dinosaurs and how they vanished. And I just took a step back, and we actually have a video of this child, and he took the class. Amazing. He took the class, and it was an amazing moment to watch this little human expressing his views on the creation of the world.
You're giving him space as well to do that.
Yeah.
It's not like, obviously, they said something, a child might say something, and then you cut them.
No.
Just give them more.
Yeah.
Give them more. So, from your experience as a director then, what impact would you say the environment has? When we say the environment, we also mean the routine, the materials, any kind of sensory input that might be inside their environment. What impact does this have on a child's, let's say, learning and behavior?
Okay, self-esteem.
Number one.
Children need to have a sense of belonging. They belong somewhere. It's not like a school. I mean, you've been to our school. They come there, They want to come in their slippers. They want to come in their pajamas. It's absolutely fine. It's their second home. They're free to move around the school. So this builds their self-esteem. There are times they will come and they will go into Gulla's office. They will talk with Miss Gulla. They're free to move around. And this gives them a sense of belonging. Okay? Compassion. Compassion and empathy. Yes, we do have our little disputes at school. But talk to the child. Exactly. And don't talk to the child, tell them sorry. Tell them that, no. How do you think they're feeling? Why do you think they're feeling like this? Internalize it. Make them aware that there are consequences. Own it. You've done something wrong, own it. I'll give you another instance, one little one. We've got a big toy outside that's like a tunnel. And some of them got some crayons, and they were drawing all inside it, making a big mess. And when I went, I was like, who did this? And one little one, she said to me, I did. I said, thank you for telling me. Thank you for owning up, but you're going to clean it now. So she owned it, but she realized that she had consequences. Yeah. So it's good for them to feel that they are safe when they've done something. Safe. Because when you get older, you're going to need a lot of safe places to go. And they need someone that they know won't judge them. Or, you know, they'll say, okay, you've done it, but there's consequence. So make them own it. Honesty. The honesty, responsibility, good judgment. Yeah. Judge what is right and wrong.
Exactly. And I think, you know, obviously we promote that the safe people in a child's life are like obviously mom and dad and the parents and the grandparents, etc. But at school, they don't have that. So if they need to be able to go to someone that they trust and that they feel safe to say, I did something wrong, you know, I did something wrong, or I'm having some difficulty in this. So I think it's very important, especially the emotional intelligence that you explained. I think it's very important for children to work on that as they grow up, and from a very young age is very important, because then you avoid the whole like lying phase and all these things. And you have a child that's emotionally mature in a way, which is amazing, because then it just opens up so many more doors.
And the academics come later. Exactly. So if they're like this, I mean, we have, you know, respect for all living and non-living things. And the example I use when I'm doing my training with my teachers is I will hold a hot cup of coffee. And I'll say, you know, I love my coffee. It's so keeping me nice and warm this morning. But then Mary comes along and she takes my cup and she throws it off the wall. Who is she hurting?
But well, both
the living person and the non-living. Yes,
and the coffee.
And the coffee. You know, so you have to understand that everything in Montessori has a purpose, whether it be living or non-living.
Exactly. So how would you say then your team might support a child that's experiencing some kind of difficulty, whether that is sensory difficulty, academic one, or even emotional one, like they're having a bad day or so, or they're having, you know, they're in this age that they're having separation anxiety or things like that?
This normally happens at the beginning when a new child starts the school. And we always see this with our baby in our toddler class. So we allow time for settling. We don't just take the child the first day. Mommy and daddy can stay for 10 minutes and then come out. The child will stay for an hour. And slowly we build it up. If it takes a month, it takes a month. Not a problem. Because we want the child, first of all, to get the connection with at least one of their teachers in the setting. And what we do is we normally observe the children for the first 3 months, from September to, say, beginning of December. And then we will have a parents' chat. It's normally about 15 minutes. And we will give them some of the things that we've noticed. Have they noticed at home? We'll work very, very closely together with the parents and give them some tips. However, if we see that some of the issues, because what we are noticing more and more is children with motor skills difficulty, with language, due to screen time, then we will collaborate with like yourself. We have occupational therapists, we have a very wonderful speech therapist and in-house psychologist. And we would not force the parent, but we would give suggestions in order to help the child. And what we've noticed is when we've given our parents that opportunity, they grasp it. And, you know, we've got a few children at the moment that in the last month, I mean, we've got one little boy in particular who was language, and he doesn't stop talking now.
Yeah.
You know, he just doesn't stop talking. And then we had another little one with some irregular behavior, let's just say it. He's amazing. He's so regulated. And that's only after 1 month of, thank you, Nasia, having yourself involved. So yes, work with the parents. We are not in who's wrong, who's right
Exactly.
here. It has to be a very strong collaboration, and it has to be very open communication. Sometimes we don't like to hear things, sometimes they don't like to hear things. It works both ways. Exactly. But this is what's building a very constructive collaboration with everybody involved.
So you're basically answering my next question, but I'm going to elaborate some more. So how would you say then, how was your experience so far collaborating within the school, obviously with occupational therapy, speech and language, psychology? What impact does this have, first of all, for you as a director and the school environment, and then for the kids and the families?
Well, basically, we are involved with many different associates, and we find it works because the associate can come to the school, which means the other children are seeing the same person around the school regularly, so you feel like part of the school. We have a specific area where the child can go and do their lesson, so they're still in their own premises. They don't feel different. They don't feel secluded. They're with someone who's coming to our school regularly. They're still in their school environment, and it allows the parents to have the full communication with the school and the associate at the same time. Exactly. We're all on the same level.
I want to give an example which I think is in the mind of many parents, which is potty training.
Yeah.
So with, for example, like potty training, let's say that a child is working with me and we start potty training. Obviously, I'm working closely with you, the teachers, and on how to approach potty training in school. But then at the same time, we work with the family on how to promote potty training at home.
Yeah.
Because we don't want the child to just start potty training at school and then at home, you know, not doing it. But it's a collaboration between the family, the school, and the professional that has the best outcomes. And I think, thankfully, we have a few examples of us working together and some children making amazing progress in all areas, not just potty training, but it's just that collaboration when even the parent is feeling that they can trust you. Yeah.
Sometimes it's overwhelming because we know they will have lots of accidents. You know, at the school, we never make a fuss when a child has an accident. You should never make a fuss. Okay, they've had an accident. Clean them, change them. It should be the same at home. I know it can be overwhelming. Some of the issues we find is some of the parents give up early and revert back to, we'll put them in Pampers at home or when we're going on trips, and then it sets the child back. We have to be consistent when we are toilet training. It's very, very important. Now, in Montessori, we say even start as early as, not toilet training, 18 months, but have a potty in the toilet. Yeah. Because your child does follow you to the toilet. If you say they don't, they do. They follow you everywhere. I mean, have a potty there. Let them sit on it, you know, and then slowly, slowly, they will start to be curious what's going on here. Basically that, be consistent with toilet training.
Exactly. And I think with toilet training, it's important to note, obviously, that for a child to be able to start potty training, they need to have a sense of awareness of what is happening within their body. Yes. So if, let's say, their speech is not developed, that might be still a little bit difficult. So that's just some food for thought, basically, for parents, just to keep in mind that there's some pre-work that we need to do
Yeah.
in order to get to potty training.
And don't try and do it all at once.
Exactly.
We don't rush the child. As Maria Montessori said, we must follow the child. Okay?
Exactly.
If the child is having some learning delay with language, work on the language first. Let them get their self-esteem, let them get their confidence, because once the confidence of language comes, then we can start focusing on other things. Don't try and do everything at once, because you'll confuse the child, and you'll make the issues worse, and the anxiety will become worse.
Definitely. And I think in terms of obviously confidence, that's a really, really important skill to have, and self-esteem before toileting.
Yeah.
You need to also be aware of your body, so any kind of interoception, that's very important to have. And then we can work on things like maybe a visual board on how to, perform the steps of toileting, which then can be transferred to home, to school.
Which we do have.
Yes.
In one of our toilets, the children who are currently toilet training, who have had some learning delays.
It's a special
We
toilet.
do, yes, a special toilet. And in there on the door, they have step-by-step guide. We are always there with the children to guide them. However, they go there and they feel independent, first of all, and absolutely no shame. No shaming whatsoever when it comes to anything to do with the body or toilet training. It's the worst thing you can do for a child.
Exactly. And I think that's a very, again, important takeaway for parents, because I think toilet training is such a sensitive subject for parents, and I think that some parents start to kind of like panic in a way when they reach a certain age and they're not toilet trained.
Yeah.
What I always say to parents, because sometimes they ask me, or like, where would you put the deadline before we start to panic? There's not a deadline, Every child is different. If they are not toilet trained by a certain age, that's
I would
fine.
say by 3.5, 4.
Yes.
Then we start to look at it a little bit differently.
Exactly. Then we start to pinpoint some difficulties that we need to work on first, and then comes the toilet training. But the thing is, we're not strict on deadlines. We follow the child, and I think that's a very important principle of Montessori as well.
I mean, we do prefer that by the time they move up to the 3 to 6 class, that they're toilet trained. However, if there is a little bit of delay, we normally give the first term, and then if we start to see that it's going into the second term, third term, then yes, we will, start looking at other areas that might need to be looked at.
So, what advice would you give to a parent that's a new parent basically, and they're looking for where to take their child for a kindergarten? Why would Montessori be a good fit for them, or how would they know that Montessori is a good fit for them?
Okay, Montessori, what I have learned over the years is, especially in Cyprus, is still quite new, Montessori, and they hear Montessori, and everybody wants to rush there. But however, when they rush there, and we're a messy school, our children yesterday were in the mud, okay, and suddenly their children is going home with their nice clothes and their
dirty clothes.
They start to think, I don't want my child playing in the mud. We have some issues just now. I don't want my child in the cold. I'm sorry, if that's then Montessori won't be for you. We are messy. Our children are outdoors a lot. We allow a lot of painting going on. We don't force the children to wear aprons, because some of them don't like to have the aprons on them. So you have to really look at, do you really want your child to be a little independent human, which I think 100% most of your parents do. But Montessori is not just a name or a fad, it's a way of life. And it's a way of life not only for our children, but for us as adults, as Montessorians. Because each day we should go home and reflect on the day. How could I have handled that better? How could I have done that better? It's a way of life from childhood for adulthood.
That's amazing. And I think that's another important thing that you said already, was that when they come to your school, they might have a day and they get so messy, which we also have our messy Mondays. We are doing the sensory club, and there's so many clubs that you actually do that it might be, the sensory club, let's say that the parent might see the sensory club and they say, oh, they just play dirty. No, we do so much more. We work through the sensory materials to get them to develop in other areas as well, like fine motor skills and things like that. And I think that the most important takeaway is that we promote independence.
Independence.
Yes, and I think another important thing to say that I really loved when I first went to your school is that everything is on their level.
Yeah.
They can basically do everything from getting the materials to putting them away. They don't have to rely on someone. No. And that's a really important area that you're cultivating.
And the same comes from breakfast.
Yes.
I mean, the cutlery is there. They pick the cutlery up themselves. When they're finished, they take their bowl. They know it goes on the tray. It goes in the dishwasher. So they know, and they know where everything is in the kitchen as well. Now, I want to mention something else, just what you said there about the messy and the motor skills and everything else. What did Maria Montessori say? The hands are the intelligence of the man. If the hands are not working, the mind is not working. So it's very, very important that these little humans are allowed to experiment with their hands
and feel,
and their feelings and their senses. From the moment they open their eyes when they're born, they have their senses, the sensitive periods. That's why they're called the sensitive periods. The sensitive periods for language, for walking. Now, think about a little human being that's born into this world, and they learn to roll over. They learn to stand up. They learn to walk. Where do they learn all of this? It's internal.
Yeah.
And if they're not giving that opportunity as small infants to do these things, this is where we have the later on when they're 2 and 3, and we have to have people like Nasia, occupational therapists, involved.
Yeah, and I think especially after the COVID period, we've noticed that a lot of parents are feeling kind of like scared to just let them get dirty, let them feel things, actually feel things. Yeah. And you know, when a child, let's say, puts their hand in, I don't know, let's say water for now, they get wet. If I put my hand in the water and I get wet, I instantly feel it. But that's after years of feeling things on my hands. For a child, they might need some more seconds to understand what they're feeling and what is happening, basically. So if you're constantly on top of them with, let's say, some Kleenex to wipe, you're not giving them the time and space to develop that. And then you get children that they're, let's say, 4, 5, and 6, that when they're eating, they're so messy and they have no understanding of it. Mm-hmm. Why do you think this is happening? Like, you're not giving them space and time and just to let them feel things. Yeah. And they're starting to not be aware of it.
I think that's a social issue all over. I mean, sorry, but I call them IKEA houses, you know, where you're not allowed to move anything or touch anything. Yeah. And it's not healthy for a child to be in such a clinically clean environment. I mean, I remember growing up, I'm a lot older than you guys, but I remember picking out rhubarb straight from the ground, cutting the bottom off and just dipping it in sugar and eating it, you know? So, you know, it's okay for them to get dirty. It's okay for them to experiment with these things. Yeah.
And I think it's not only okay, it's needed.
It is needed. I had a teacher one day, we were in the small garden, and a little toddler went up and started licking the pole of the fence. Yeah. And she said, "Don't do that, it doesn't taste nice." And I looked at her and I said to her, "How do you know it doesn't taste nice?" That's because you did that as a child. So this is how we learn.
Exactly.
This is how we learn.
So what values and principles guide your work as a Montessori, obviously, practitioner and director now? And what would you hope a child that's leaving your school carry away with them after they finish their school?
First of all, the memories. The memories that they've made in our big garden. Yeah. That they feel confident, they feel loved, and they feel respected. Very, very important to feel that they are part of something bigger in this world. Because they are. Yeah. You know, and I always tell my children when they're leaving us, I'm waiting to see your name up there somewhere. Because they're all stars, and they will all be something unique in their own way. not all of us are built to be doctors and scientists and everything else. I mean, I can tell you some of my children now, one in particular little boy, he's now 8. And I said from the beginning, he's going to be amazing. He's going to be an engineer or an architect or something. And even to this day, he doesn't like artwork. He wants to work with his hands, building, numbers. He's still exactly the same. So let him enjoy that.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we as occupational therapists, we often promote, is that we embrace their superpowers.
Yeah.
So a child might be amazing at reading, but they might suck at, anything to do with fine motor skills. That's fine.
That's fine.
I'm going to use that difficulty as your superpower.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to work on the fine motor skills, but I'm going to use that reading superpower to your benefit. And I'm going to include that into the activities just to make them even more, appealing to you.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is very important because whenever I come to your school, something I notice is that you have a classroom with so many different personalities, and you don't force them to be the same person.
But they shouldn't be.
Exactly. And I think this is amazing because you're not trying to mold them into being this typical 5-year-old. This is not what you do. And
but what is a typical 5-year-old?
Everyone is different. That's exactly what I mean. And I think that you're giving them space and time to be themselves, to explore, to improve on things. And if along the way they find, a difficulty with something, you're there.
Yeah.
And I think this is a takeaway for the parents.
And it's also okay to say, no, we can't do that at the moment.
Exactly.
And I find that's a thing that, particularly with the toddlers, they don't hear no.
Yeah.
And it's good for them to hear no. They're going to grow up and they're going to go into this big bad world and they will hear no a lot.
And they will be upset.
And they will be upset if they don't understand that, this is okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
And I think the whole thing, obviously, with limits and setting boundaries, I think when they hear the Montessori that we promote, independence and things like that, I think there's a little bit of a misconception.
There is.
That while you're promoting independence, you don't say, no, this is not what is happening.
I'll give you an instance, okay? Yes, we allow the child the freedom. However, one child yesterday, I don't want to put my jacket on and I don't want to put my hat on. Well, then you can't go outside.
Exactly.
As adults, it's our responsibility to understand where the boundaries can go and where they can't go.
Yeah.
And this is one thing. And sometimes some of my newer teachers will say, but she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to, but this is something she has to.
Yeah.
And this is where us as adults, we have to be responsible and say, I understand you don't want to do it, but at the moment it's very cold and you're going to get dressed up to go outside.
Exactly.
Finished.
Yeah. And I think this is very important because the misconception with, saying no is a little bit of a put off for some parents. And I think it's important to obviously clarify that. And I think it's not only okay to say no, it's needed. Because as you said, they're going to go out into the world and the first time they hear no, they're going to become so upset. Like, people say no to me?
How dare they?
How dare they? So I think this is a very, again, important concept to work on with children.
But this is where you get taking responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
If they're never expected to take responsibility, I mean, this child will probably go home and say, Miss Linda made me put my jacket on, and then the teacher said, but why did you make her do that? It's, well, it's cold.
Yeah.
So the child is hearing this and thinking, well, I'm allowed to do that, but she's making me do this. So
yeah.
So this is where you have to watch your boundaries very, very carefully.
And of course, not only watch the boundaries, but then collaborate with the family.
Yes.
So the family needs to, obviously, you're going to listen to your child if they're having, a rough day and when they want to say something to you like, oh, this happened at school. But don't necessarily say that, oh my God, you're right. You don't have to say that. Speak with the teacher and just maybe cross-reference a little bit what happened before you validate what they're saying. Because children can be manipulative, not to be bad, not to do harm, but they can be manipulative.
But you know
to
how
get
many
their
times
way.
I've had a parent tell me that children can't manipulate? Do you know how many times I've heard that?
I've had this conversation with so many parents.
And
but-
we're not saying manipulate in a bad way or a dangerous
Exactly.
way. They know. Think about it. And that's why I always say to parents as well, if you're having a disagreement of what one of you have done with the child compared to the other, never do it in front of them.
the child.
Speak to each other alone.
Yeah.
Because they're very smart and they will pick up on it.
That's a really important thing. And I think that even yesterday, I think I had this conversation with one of my parents that come for occupational therapy. And I said, you need to stop playing bad cop and good cop. If you're doing that, especially in front of the child, they'll pick up on it and they'll use it. Because the word manipulation by nature is not a bad word, but we make it into a bad word because it's used to harm. But for a child, they're not doing it to harm necessarily. They're just doing it to get their way, which is how they are trying to experiment in a way. They're trying to experiment with boundaries, with limits, with anything that's going to get them to do what they like.
It's the same with discipline. The word discipline now apparently is a bad word. No, it's not a bad word.
Exactly.
We've made it a bad word.
Yeah.
Children thrive on routines. They thrive on discipline. They thrive on being guided.
Consistency as well.
Consistency. There is the word, consistency. You need to be consistent. The same at school and the same at home.